I'm so glad you're here listening to the Sustain Your Passion podcast. I'm Genesis, your host and business development expert. If you're ready to make a bigger impact and income while helping others, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining me, and I can't wait to help you sustain your passion. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Sustain Your Passion. I'm so excited today to bring you my best friend, my co-researcher, my liberationships partner, and the person who I swear changed my life so many times I couldn't even count. But I am just so glad to be talking with Kim today and to get to share her with you all. So, hi, Kim. Thanks for joining me for this podcast episode today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to always have time with you.
Yes, feels like a long time coming. So,
Mhm.
okay, today we are going to talk pointedly about our book writing experience, which is finally kind of sort of mostly done. And we'll tell you about that journey, but there are so many things that we'll probably reference. So, if you hear this episode and you're like, wait, y'all did what? Like, wait, tell us more about that. Please write me on social media. Come and find me at Genesis_Rose on Instagram, and you can send me a message. Let me know what you think of this episode. And if you have any questions for me and Kim, we would be so happy to continue this conversation in future episodes. But for today, we are going to zoom in on what it's been like to write a book together, because I know there's so many of you listeners that are like, writing a book sounds so big. And to be real with you, it is. It is so big. And so with that, Kim, where should we start? When do you first remember like us exploring writing a book together?
My goodness. I think it was after we had like presented multiple times, right? Liberationships and our theory at different conferences and engaged in conversations. And we got so much amazing feedback, particularly from women, femmes, non binary folks, but also folks in other marginalized identities who like really resonated with our work. And so I think it was like after like I don't know, our seventh or eighth sort of time. And it was like, okay, like maybe more people could connect to this and utilize what we have to say. And so I think that's kind of where the idea happened. Maybe like was it the mentoring institute, like sitting out
Mm,
on the patio?
with Gunner. I
Yes,
think
with Gunner.
so. I remember that too. Okay, so I know for the first couple of years as we were sharing the idea, it was really like we are researchers. We co-developed this model, and it all started from the model, right? Of looking at this research study that we ran years ago, because was it part of your PhD, or was it even before that?
It was part of my coursework actually. So I had to put together like a research project. And, if like we didn't do IRB, then like, it's just kind of for class. But I don't like to do things just to do things. And you, me, and Janet had just talked like, I don't know, maybe 6 months before about kind of what is it about our relationships that make our mentorship so unique and amazing. And so it just kind of fit together like that. This could all work. So yeah, that was in the second year of my of coursework in my doc program.
Perfect. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because so we were in mentorship relationship for a few years, and what really spoke to us was that it was different, right? We recognized like when certain things were happening in our lives, like we needed to process it with certain mentors. And up until then, as mentorship researchers, we hadn't found any theories that we were like, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I want to build. This is it, right? It's articulating the experience correctly for us.
Yeah.
And that just didn't exist. And so then when we had that opportunity, we were like, well, let's let's be the ones to write about what this is like so that maybe other people can find it and be like, oh shit, like that's what I want to, or that's what I do, or whatnot. Like that's how I want to engage with my mentees or mentors, rather than, the more typical form of mentorship, which is like, I'm the mentor, I know all the things, you mentee know nothing, and I'm going to pour all the knowledge into you, and you're going to like praise me, and I'm going to have this big ego trip by being your mentor. No, 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 no. We did not experience that in our relationship. I did not experience that as with Kim as my mentor. And we knew that like the way that we were engaging was really powerful because we were doing dope shit. Like we were just killing it in our careers. We were really thriving in our personal lives, like feeling more liberated. And like that's what mentorship should do. I think we both had that like firm belief of like, oh, this is good mentorship. So how do we document it and share it with people? And so it started with a theory. But to your point, like, yeah, we went on a bit of a road tour. I wonder how
We
many times
did.
we presented our theory.
Yeah, both at conferences, webinars, like all kinds
Mhm.
of campus, um, nationally, regionally, state, like all kinds of places. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that would be a cool number to figure out at some point. Like how many people, I remember those first couple years talking it out with folks. It was so helpful to hear back. Like,
Mm.
does this make sense to you? Like the first couple
Yeah.
years was like vetting it with our
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And then once we were like, okay, yeah, this is it, it's time to put it in like a bit more formal of a structure because it's not changing anymore. Like we keep socializing it with different groups and like it's pretty thorough. And then yeah, the mentoring institute. So the cool thing about that conference was part of the requirements was you had to write a paper to be
Mm-hmm.
published in their publications.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting, I think we each had 4 submissions or something like that, 3 or 4.
We had 4 between the two of us.
That's yeah.
Yeah. Which was a lot of writing that
So
summer.
much. That was so much. Gosh, yeah. Okay.
We had one about liberation ships,
Yep.
one with the graduate students and using liberation ships as a supervisory
Mm,
method, tool,
mm,
strategy, organization structure. I don't know. But
mhm.
between that, with grad students virtually. And then we had one on supervision that
Yeah,
was like kind of outside of like grad students, just supervision in general. And then entrepreneurship.
that's
Yeah,
right.
we had
Yeah.
like,
Oh my goodness. That was a fun trip. That was in New Mexico.
yeah.
You remember what year that was?
Ooh.
Like 19?
2019 maybe.
That's right. Yeah, like pre-pandemic. Wow. Oh my goodness. And then from that, so we had all this writing done and we were like, wait, could we turn some of this into like book chapters? Because these articles that you're writing for peer-reviewed articles are long, they're um very formal, there's lots of research into it. And so we basically had, gosh, between all of that, dozens and dozens of pages written that we could then think about, well, how do we work smarter, not harder with that, right? Like shout out to Dr. Larry Roper, the OG, work harder, not smarter. And, thinking about, well, we've created this, how do we continue expanding on it? And
Mhm.
then I think you got an email that was for the call for publishing, um, or a call for proposals rather, for publishing a book as part of a series. And that's how we were like, wait, is this where we're gonna write our book? Like, I'm pretty sure we submitted a proposal to another org. Was it NASPA?
Yeah, it was. So we submitted, and I think this is tracking because I think it was at the Mentor Institute. Yes, that we did talk about it because we submitted an application to NESPA and then like the pandemic hit. And so that shifted their timelines. And so we were waiting to hear back from them. And then we saw the call. And I also remember about that I wanted to name that like when we did the NASPA proposal, I remember conversations around like, that was so easy. Like, is that it? Is this it? Did we just do a proposal in like one meeting? We like got it done. And very similar for the second proposal that we did, and sent it off, and it came back really quickly. They accepted us as part of the series, which is amazing.
Totally. And I remember that now that you're, sharing that, I'm remembering, yeah, we were getting really kind of frustrated that we weren't hearing back. I'm pretty sure we even like messaged them and we just weren't hearing back. And yes, pandemic definitely changed things. And so it was like, well, we don't want to keep waiting on this. Like, realistically, let's withdraw from that one then and try this other one. And I remember reading it about it, and the series was just so clear that, oh, this fits really well. So I just pulled it up because it's a lot of words, right? But the series we're a part of is Identity and Practice in Higher Education Student Affairs. So that's the series our book is in. It's going to be published by Information Age Publishing. And then our book is titled Liberationships, Critical Mentorship and Practice. And so it's really all about our theory brought into practice. And so we get to tell stories in it. We get to articulate how to actually bring the theory to life in your relationships. And that idea of it being identity and practice in higher ed student affairs like fits so well from where it started, because it was really about how do we as women of color sustain in predominantly white higher education institutions that feel like they're constantly pushing us out when we try to say, hey, what about those folks? Or hey, what about this group? What about that barrier? Or we're doing any kind of pushback. We really needed a way to sustain our capabilities and our well-being in that environment, which now, part of the model is there's this ever lasting circle around the outside because change continues to happen. And it looks a little different for us these days, like what our mentorship relationship looks like and where we do our best work is growing, and like how we're engaging with the core theme of liberationships is a little different these days, but that's exactly the same as like what we're articulating here about how we picked who to even, submit our book to. You may not know exactly where it's going to go, but we knew that we had something special. Like, we knew we had an idea that was worth talking about, and we were getting that feedback from people. And I'll never forget, like, one of our conferences. I don't remember what city it was, but I can picture the room. And I remember somebody coming up to us afterwards, and she was just like, so where is this model from? And we were like, wait, what? um like, it's our model. And she was like, no, like, who made the model? And we were like, yo, us, like,
Yeah,
her and
that
me
was
and
us.
her. Yeah, like, we did that. And she was like, oh, like, you came up with the model. Do you have a book? And we were like,
Mm,
yeah. And she was like, okay, you need a book. And we were like, okay. I think it might have been the supervision talk at the Mentoring Institute, maybe.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah, it was either that or NASPA's in Sacramento.
Sacramento. Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
it was one of those two.
Yeah,
It
those were like
happened
really
like
important groups.
1 month from each other or something like that. So
We were traveling a lot that
yeah.
that time period. But it just felt like we have more to say here, and we just needed to find the people that wanted us to put that idea into writing. And yeah, the series was perfect, and it all came from you being on a listserv,
Mm,
getting the email, and it being like, oh, I think this is where we're gonna write our book.
yeah, absolutely. And two things I want to share based on had what you just shared. One, we started with NASPA because that's where our mentorship like formally started, was through that organization. And so that's what we knew, right? And had connection there, and all of this, and seen it very much there, centered there. And so I think that was really good actually for our first one, our first go at the proposal, to be able to connect with like this organization, like made like help facilitate all of this, right?
Like we wouldn't have
And
met
so I think we
without.
had a little more confidence when that other um, call went out, that we're like, okay, hey, yeah, no, right. And we'd had some time too to sit with it, that like we could be book chapter
Mm,
or book authors.
mhm,
And so I think that that was part of it too, that we could see ourselves in that space because we had done a proposal, and the proposal felt kind of easy, and right, like, so all of those pieces I think really played in.
mm,
And you had said something about like how like the model and us are continuing to grow and shift, and which is part of the beauty of the model, I think. But that made me think about, oh, and I just lost it. Of course I would lose it. My thought. And like it was something about, oh, that last chapter was so fun to write also.
mm,
That like this research is like, you know, we created this back in 2017, 2018, and now to be able to talk about how the model um is still the model, it's still working for us, it's amazing. And like we're in these new contexts
mhm.
also, right? And thinking about future and all of that, it was just really fun to be able to share where we are now and our hopes for future, um and all of that.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true, thinking about the identity piece. I love that you call that out, because that's really what it took time. And I think,
Mm.
if you had asked me when we first got started, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it is now, 9 years, a while ago, like, hey, do you want to write a book together? I would have been like, no, like, I can't write a book. Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about? But
yeah,
then we wrote articles and then we presented and then we wrote more articles and then we wrote a book chapter with people and wrote a book chapter on our own. And then we wrote a book. So, like,
yeah,
it may sound like, oh, just overnight we decided to write a book, but like, I think it's really important. And I hope that you hear this in this podcast that, like, it took growing pains, it took time, it took
yeah,
support and other people reflecting back to us, like, you can write a book and we want you to write this book. That was so empowering because it's really hard to just sit down and decide to write a book. And
yeah.
it's a big feat, like, I think it actually took us like 2 years to get it written because, or maybe a little less, I don't know, but it's a long time because it's a lot of words and a lot of thinking about ideas and structuring it. And it's so rewarding though to now know, like, we have a whole manuscript written and like, it's so true to your second point, right? The ever evolving nature of the way we structured the model. And then we wrote about that in the last chapter, that the concept of like being a high impact mentor or actually helping in your relationships growth to flourish and both individuals to actually reach their goals in validated ways that are impactful for them transcends spaces, right? We wrote this model when we needed it to sustain in higher ed, but here we are developing businesses and growing our own brands and serving in so many new ways. And yet the core themes of the way that we relate to one another still stand as true pillars for why we can have this increased contribution and feel more validated and witness our personal growth, which are all of the three main outcomes of the model of liberationship relationships. And so it fits so well that we wrote about that, right? And that, like, this new version and in the future is outside of higher ed because of entrepreneurship. But I just feel like that shows that the model is so valid, right? That it transcends spaces. Um, but I don't know that I would have. I know actually that I didn't think that that would was true back when we first wrote it, right? Like, I thought this is going to fit in this one little area and that's it. But over time and sharing it with more people actually gave me more confidence that, like, oh no, more people need to hear this and it really can be what helps a lot of people think differently about their relationships in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that connects it to that, right? Like my dissertation is like was looking at how we maintained our deep liberationship virtually, right? Which now, like, who knew that that would be so timely for this like global pandemic that like none of us could have predicted, right?
Right.
Um, and so it just feels so beautiful to have created something so impactful out of pain and violence, right?
Yeah.
That it's because of systems of oppression that we were feeling the way we were, that we needed, a way to sustain higher ed. And so, um, yeah, it just feels amazing, powerful, I don't know, like liberated, right? To be in a liberation ship and to engage in a way where, we can bring our whole selves and um we can operate in different ways.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, as you just said, like to sustain in higher ed, right? And I'm pausing, I'm like, shoot, was it to sustain in higher ed or was it to sustain in my life?
Mhm.
Like, and
Yeah.
higher ed was where I was trying to fit. But then eventually it became that, like, oh, higher ed's not the right fit. And like, that's okay. But the liberation ship and your continued support and energy and love towards me and my career and life is that now I actually sustain my well-being, and higher ed's not a big part of it anymore. Like, I don't actually work in higher ed anymore, but I'm still able to share this book and these lessons to say this is what helped me for a long time in that space. And then when I recognize, like, I don't think this space is right for me anymore, the model still is what helped me get here, and to continue in entrepreneurship too, in a liberated way that says my needs matter and I can take care of myself, and that I can be supported through this. Like, it's just so cool to, yeah, I don't know that I've paused to really reflect on the fact that it's still working, like it's still transcending spaces.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much. As soon as I said higher ed, I was like, no, no. And
Mhm,
that's what we've talked about so much, right? Like that,
mhm,
like it helped us navigate that workspace. However, like the liberation ship is bringing our whole self to the space, right?
mhm.
Which then these liberation ships have truly impacted our lives. And I just, think about I would not be the person I am today, the mom, the educator, the wife, like the daughter, right? Like all of my relationships in and outside of work, like I would not be who I am today had it not been for liberationships. So thank you for calling that out and naming that.
Yeah, thanks. So at this point, you probably have a little bit of an idea about what our book is about. We're not going to tell you all the details because you have to read the book, but and the model and all those good things. But of course, we have lots of resources online too. So should you be interested, just let me know. I can send
There.
you over some of the resources we already have published. But I'm curious, Kim, what would you say was the like biggest challenge for you in writing the manuscript?
Um, I would say a huge part of it really was the mindset piece, like the blocks that I needed to continue to work through because of systems of oppression, that like we could be book authors, right? That I have something that's worthy to put in a book. Like I don't know how to like break that
Mm-hmm.
down anymore, but like I think that every time I sat down to write, like I had to move past that, right? Where it's like, oh, like I'm working on a book chapter right now with a student, and um, it's like I sit down and like, okay, yeah, like I'm going. But when I sat down to work on the book, there was still that block there, right? That as a woman of color from, low income background and like who suffers from chronic pain and chronic illnesses and like all these things that like I who am I to
Mm,
write a book, right? And so I think that was the biggest piece. Um, and then once we found our groove, it was just so easy and it was like, so quick. What about
mm.
for you? What was the hardest part?
Yeah, yeah. I love that and I feel that, like the mindset piece. I feel like that's something that in working together we figured out is if we prioritize working on our emotions and our thoughts, the work
Mhm.
gets done so much faster. And so that really, like what you just shared, really exemplifies that. So thank you. So for me, I would say the hardest part was if I try thinking about getting the entire thing done, it
Mm,
overwhelmed the heck out of me. Like the idea that we had 9 chapters to write
yeah.
was like, oh my God. And like when I looked at the amount of characters and the words and the pages it was like gonna be that we sent into the proposal, I was like, oh crap, like this is too big. Like it just
Mhm.
felt so big to try and do all of that. And so I had to consciously think about I'm not trying to write the book right now. I'm sitting down not even to write the chapter right now. I'm sitting down to write a sentence and maybe even not a fully complete sentence. Like
Mhm.
it's okay just to spend time getting my thoughts back in the work. And then once I allowed myself to just be thinking about the work, then it was like, oh, I have these ideas. I want to document it. Oh, I should go write. And so it was fun. And then it was like, okay, now I want to get these down. Like it actually came from a place of joy and fun and like excitement to write. But when I started trying to write from a place of I should write, I should be writing, I
Mm.
should be finishing that chapter, I should write one more page. Ugh, it felt terrible. And if I ever started, like, gosh, which is so funny. Don't ever let me do this again, Kim. Okay. I'm gonna try and not do this myself. I am the queen of like, we should make a plan. We have like multiple timeline sheets with these goals. Let's finish this chapter in this month and that chapter in that month. We did not stick to that plan. I haven't looked at that document in forever.
Oh my goodness.
Like the structure isn't always needed though,
Yeah.
like, and I think sometimes for me, it's like I lean on the structure because it makes me
Mm.
feel like I can do it when really it's just the idea and the creative side of me needs more space. And so I think figuring out how to do that was hard. And I don't know that I've actually even paused to think about like what I did or what I learned from that until right now. But as I'm reflecting on it, it's like, yeah, that's totally what it was. When I told myself I should be doing certain things, I couldn't do it. But when I was just like, I just want to feel inspired and think about this concept a little bit more, then it was so easy for me to want to go and work on it.
Yeah, for sure. That makes tons of sense. And I think, as we have come up educationally, right, through a lot of structure, right?
Mm,
And so that's what we knew. And once we leaned into how we work best,
mm,
right? What are each of our skills and how we bring that to the writing process? Like that was a game changer as well. And so we had to liberate
mm.
the sort of ways in which we thought a book had to be written, right?
Yeah. Can you
Um,
say more about that for listeners? Like, I know what you're referencing, but like, what was our method that we figured out worked for when we were co-writing?
yeah, so we had started with some co-work times where we both would be like working on the same chapter, but like from our different perspectives. And that was a struggle every time. And ultimately, we ended up just having conversation, recorded conversation that we then took the transcripts and turned into writing. And so, um, while that's a puzzle of a different sort, that worked so well for us to be able to engage in conversation that helped us deepen or helped us highlight, right? Like what we really wanted to say or talk about or remember stories or any of those pieces. So the recording and talking it out together was really important.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's so many different ways I'm sure that authors write together, but like co-writing is its own skill set and practice. And so for us being in conversation like this is largely what brought us to the work, helped us figure out the work. Like I
Yeah.
can still picture the first version of the model that was like a train with wheels under it that we drew like on a whiteboard in your office years
Yep.
ago.
Yep.
It looks much more like a flower nowadays than a train, but it was the same idea, that was coming to fruition. But there's something so magical about like being in space together to talk about the
Mm.
topics that like I remember in the article we wrote about or that we wrote with Gunnar and Trina about it was very meta, right? It was like writing together. And one of the things we recognized was we had this thing, I think we called it a third voice or fourth voice or something like that, where
Mhm.
it was
Yeah,
like,
the fourth voice.
yeah, like we each individually had our tone, but then we had this collective voice that none of us could write that sentence without each other helping write
Mhm.
that sentence, right? Or that
Yeah.
paragraph. And I think that that's what we figured out how to do with our recording structure is like that was the us and then the individuals, whichever one of us wanted to add more detail afterwards to a concept, then we could go and be like, oh yeah, if I were to explain that further, this is what I would say about it. But knowing like what the meat of it was, like what's the point, I think, yeah, it was really helpful to start in a conversational tone because that's what our relationship has always been.
Mm.
Like one-on-one conversation is what we studied and
Yeah.
like know a lot about now. So it
Yeah,
makes sense. That was our writing style too.
absolutely. And it's interesting to also think back that how we wrote the book was also or like the sections that we took to like go add some more detail um ended up aligning with our presentations and what each of us talked about. Yeah. So it's like we leaned not only into how we needed to work together, right? To talk and be in conversation, but then also this other layer that then what like listening to right?
Yeah.
The places that drew us,
Mm,
that we wanted to talk about in, our conversations of presentations then came out in the book.
that's so funny. I
Mhm.
hadn't thought about that, but yeah, totally, right? Like the intro, we kind of went back and forth. We were told about our story. We
Mhm.
basically took our presentation slides and then turned it
Yeah.
into a book. Like
Oh, we did.
I
Plus
bet
2
we was
chapters.
that.
Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
that's cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Because then,
Yeah.
yeah, introducing the model and then talking about or talking about the research, introducing the model, and then talking about the impact of it. Like, oh my gosh, that's
Mhm.
so cool. So, lesson here, I suppose, is if you have an idea, there's no wrong way for you to keep working on that idea, keep
Mhm.
nurturing that
Yeah.
idea. And the more you can take liberated action towards exploring the concepts and the ideas and the theories that excite you in your life and allow your natural gifts to shine and find someone or someone's in your life to help complement the other parts to grow your impact in a liberatory way, like that's the dream. We've been doing it, it's been working. And so even I'm sure I can't remember the exact day, but at some point we had a concept just an idea, right? Like you probably had the thought at some point on in your classroom, oh, maybe we could do a duo ethnography. Like maybe we could study this. And then it grew into this big work that's now going to be a fucking book we're going to have printed and like on our shelves. And it's like, what? Like, and so, yeah, I guess I'm sharing a takeaway here. So maybe Kim, if you want to think of something that like you might share too, but I'm thinking here in closing, I just want to say to all the listeners, like, even if you feel like you have an idea right now that you're not sure where it's going to go, if it keeps tugging at your heart, at your brain, give it time and space and know that it can take years to develop an idea. It can take years to get clear on what your idea is. And then it can take a whole lot more years to shape that idea into a thing, right? And so it can happen really fast, it can happen slower. Like, don't rush yourself, but know that if you have interest, like keep nurturing it, keep watering it, keep that alive. Even if it's just in a really busy Trello board somewhere that you occasionally remember exists and look at, because that's another thing that Kim and I do. We have a massive list of ideas in a Trello board,
So
but
many
like
ideas.
it's because of that tracking that like we kept at it, we kept coming back to this concept. And so even if you don't know where it's going to go, like trust your pulse to be worthy of looking at and nurturing. That would be my like lesson and takeaway, I would say, in closing here.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that. Um, I think mine would be, now that we have done that book, like now we're in talks of like 4 or 5 more books, right? And just how like getting through that scary thing that we've done now, or is am doing close to the end of that now we're able to see different possibilities, right? And see what other spaces we have, that are important to share our voice, our story, our expertise, all of those. And so it's just opened up a whole new world for us. And so I'd say, leaning into that hard and scary thing that's on your goal list, um, by, even if it does take years, by engaging in that and doing that, like you learn so much about yourself, about colleagues, right? Like all of that, and unlearn some, right, some ish, and then just opens up this whole new sort of world and place and space. And so do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
There's a sign behind me that says go for it. I have a friend from Bend who made me that. And so as you said that, I was like, that's so perfect. Yes, 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 yes. Just do it. Not sponsored by Nike yet. But
I love
uh,
that yet,
yes,
Casey.
exactly. Growth mindset, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for chatting with me about what it's been like to just take this concept and work together and write a book. Like, I'm sure there's lots of other details we could dive into. So, again, listeners, if you have something you want to know more about, like this, if it's the logistics, if it's the writing, if you want us to detail the model, like please get in touch with us. You know how to find me on Instagram at Genesis_Rose. And here in a second, I'll have Kim share with you how to reach out to her as well. But I really just want to thank you all for being here and listening, and for knowing that you're worth professional and personal development. That's why you're here listening. You know that you are worth nurturing. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to share about our experiences with you through this podcast. So thank you for listening. So, Kim, where can folks find you?
Yeah, folks can find me on Instagram at Kim McAloney or at KMax Creatives. That's KMACSKREATIVES. So I had to like process that. So thank you. And also at www.kmax.com as well.
Yay.
Thanks so much
Awesome.
for having me on and getting to share about this. This work is so important, and the work of liberation is so important. And so, I really hope that your listeners will take some nuggets from this and do that scary thing, and know that there's support for them to do the scary thing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, for your time, your energy, and sharing your brilliance with the world. I think the world is a better place because you're in it. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'll be back next week. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sustain Your Passion podcast. If this episode helped you gain a bit more clarity, courage, or confidence, please share it with your friends on social media or in a text. It would mean the world to me. Thanks in advance for sharing this episode. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.